The knock at midnight asterisk. It was a cold and quiet night. The wind howled outside, and the sky was full of dark clouds. Jack, a lonely farmer, sat inside his small wooden house. He was drinking hot tea and listening to the radio. His dog, Max, slept. Near the fire, Jack had lived alone for many years. His farm was far from the town. No one came to visit. He didn't mind. He liked the silence. But that night, something strange happened. Knock. Knock. Jack froze. Someone was at the door. He looked at the clock. It was past midnight. Who could be out here at this hour? He whispered to himself. He stood up slowly and walked to the door. Max began to growl. Jack opened the door carefully, but no one was there. He looked left, then right. The road was empty. The trees stood still in the cold wind. He was about to close the door when he looked down. There, on his doorstep, was a small bundle, a blanket, and inside, something moved. Jack bent down and opened the blanket. His eyes widened. It was a baby, but not a human baby. Its skin was light blue. Its eyes were large and glowing. Tiny fingers reached up and touched his hand. Its body was cold and shaking. Jack stepped back. What in the world? The baby made a soft sound. Not a cry, but something like a hum. Jack's heart began to race. He looked around again. Someone must have left it here. He picked up the baby. It was lighter than he expected. Its skin was soft, almost like silk. Suddenly, Max barked loudly and ran toward the bush near the house. Jack turned. He thought he saw something move in the dark. "Hello?" he shouted. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just the sound of leaves in the wind. He waited a moment, but no one came. Jack brought the baby inside and locked the door. He sat at the table, staring at the creature in his arms. "What are you?" he whispered. The baby stared at him with glowing eyes. Then it smiled. Jack was still confused, but he couldn't leave it outside in the cold. He took a small bottle, warmed some milk, and tried feeding the baby. To his surprise, it drank. It was hungry. After feeding, the baby curled up in the blanket and slept. Jack touched its tiny hand again. Suddenly, his palm started to glow. He jumped back. A soft mark appeared on his skin round, with strange lines. It didn't hurt. It felt warm. The glow faded after a few seconds, but the mark remained. What just happened? He said aloud, shaking his hand. Max sat near the baby and watched it, tail wagging slowly. Jack didn't sleep that night. He sat by the fire, watching the child sleep in a basket. His mind was full of questions. Where did you come from? Who left you here? Why me? Outside, above the clouds, high in the sky, something hovered. Hidden by night and storms, an alien ship floated silently. Inside the ship, a tall alien woman sat at a broken control panel. Her silver skin was dirty and bruised. Her eyes glowed dimly. On a screen, she watched the baby sleeping in Jack's house. A tear ran down her cheek. She touched the screen and whispered something in her language. The ship's lights flickered. She was running out of power. Her hands were shaking. She looked weak, but her eyes were full of pain and love. She had left her child at the human's door. She didn't want to, but she had no choice. Now, all she could do was watch. But back on Earth, the wind blew harder. The night was long and full of secrets. Jack didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The alien mother returns. The next night was even colder. Thick clouds covered the moon. Jack sat near the fire again, holding the strange baby in his arms. He had given the baby a name, Luma, because of the soft glow from her skin. Luma was quiet. She watched everything with big eyes. When Jack smiled at her, she tried to copy it. He laughed gently. Even though he didn't understand what she was, he felt a strong connection. But something didn't feel right. Max, his dog, had been acting nervous all evening. He kept going to the window, growling softly. Jack stood up and looked outside. The trees were still. The night was silent. Then he saw her. A figure stood near the edge of the woods. Tall, thin, pale silver skin. Eyes that glowed faint blue. Her arms hung at her sides, and her legs shook as she tried to walk toward the house. Jack blinked. The figure collapsed. "Max, stay," Jack said, and ran outside. He rushed to the woman's side. She was cold and barely breathing. Her face was tired, full of pain. But her eyes met his, and they softened when she saw Luma in his arms. Jack looked around quickly. Is someone watching? The road was empty. The sky was silent. He lifted the woman carefully and carried her inside. She was lighter than he expected. Just like the baby. Inside the house, he laid her on the couch. Her body was covered in cuts and bruises. Her clothes looked like a spacesuit, but it was torn. He wrapped her in blankets and placed Luma beside her. The baby reached out and touched the woman's hand. The woman opened her eyes slowly. A tear slid down her cheek. She whispered something in a strange language and held the baby close. Jack stood back, unsure what to do. "Are you her mother?" he asked softly. She didn't reply, but her eyes said yes. Jack tried to give her water. She drank slowly, weak and trembling. "I won't hurt you," Jack said, even though she probably didn't understand. That night, she slept deeply. Jack stayed awake again, guarding them both. By morning, she had enough strength to sit up. She pointed at herself and said one word. "Aurella? Your name?" Jack asked. "Aurella?" She nodded. Then she pointed at the baby. "Luma." Jack was surprised. That was the same name he had given her. Did she hear him from the woods? Or had he somehow known? Aurella pointed to the sky and spoke slowly. "Ship. Broken. Crash. Danger." Jack listened carefully. "Danger?" he asked. "You mean someone's coming?" Aurella nodded quickly. Her hand shook as she tried to draw on the wooden table using ash from the fireplace. She made a strange symbol. It looked like a claw inside a circle. "Who are they?" Jack asked. "Hunters?" She nodded again. Jack felt a chill go down his spine. Aurella tried to speak. "More. They follow me. Hurt baby. Hurt me. Hurt you." He looked at Luma. She was asleep, glowing softly in the basket. Aurella pointed at Jack's hand. The mark was still there, the glowing shape from when he first touched Luma. She placed her hand over his and closed her eyes. Suddenly, Jack saw something. Not with his eyes, but in his mind. He saw her ship flying through space. He saw large ships chasing her, shooting at her. He saw her holding Luma tightly, crying. Then he saw Earth, and her escape pod falling through the sky. The images faded. Jack gasped and pulled his hand back. "You showed me," he said, breathing heavily. Aurella looked at him with soft eyes. "You kind, you help." Jack nodded. "I'll protect you both. I promise." But deep inside, he was scared. He wasn't a fighter. He was just a farmer. And something told him that danger was already close. That night, as Jack locked the doors and covered the windows, he felt a strange energy in the air. He sat near the fire again, Luma in his lap and Aurella resting beside them. But outside, far above in the sky, a satellite blinked red. It had picked up a strange energy signal from Jack's house. And deep underground, inside a secret government base, men in black suits looked at a screen. "Sir," one of them said, "we found something." The government watches asterisk. Morning sunlight touched the frost-covered fields outside Jack's farm. But Jack wasn't enjoying the view. He hadn't slept much. Inside his house, the alien woman, Aurella, sat quietly with her baby, Luma, on her lap. Jack was still trying to understand everything. He had seen flashes in his mind memories that weren't his. Aurela had shown them to him. She had escaped something terrible. She had left her home to protect her child. But Jack also saw something else that worried him. A ship, a symbol, and soldiers in black armor. That same morning, in a secret room deep under a government base, a group of men stared at a glowing map. One of the red dots blinked fast. "There," said a man in a gray suit. The signal came from this location. "Outskirts, a farm." Another agent nodded. "No one should have that energy signature. It's not from Earth." A general walked into the room. "Send a team," he ordered. "No warning, no mistakes." Back at the farm, Jack was chopping wood when a black SUV passed down the road slowly. He stopped and watched it. It didn't belong to anyone from around here. The windows were dark. The car didn't stop, but Jack noticed something strange. It had no license plate. Max growled. His ears stood straight. Jack walked back into the house quickly. "Aurela," he whispered. "We might have a problem." Aurela stood. Her body was still weak, but she was alert. She picked up Luma and went to the basement. Jack had already prepared a space there with food, water, and warm blankets. It wasn't much, but it would keep them hidden for a while. As Aurela and Luma went downstairs, Jack covered the door with a rug. A knock came soon after. 3 men in suits stood at the door when he opened it. "Morning," one of them said. "We're from the energy department. There's been an unusual signal in this area. Mind if we ask a few questions?" Jack forced a smile. "Energy signal? I think you've got the wrong place. I just grow corn." One of the men looked around. "Mind if we come inside?" Jack's heart beat faster, but he stepped aside. "Sure, just don't mind the mess." They walked in slowly, eyes scanning every detail: walls, furniture, even the fireplace. "You live alone?" one of them asked. "Just me and my dog." The agents didn't smile. One of them opened a small device and held it near the table. It made a sharp beeping sound when it passed over the spot where Aurela had drawn the symbol. Jack noticed it, but said nothing. "You seen anything strange recently?" the man asked. "Strange?" Jack shrugged. "I saw a coyote steal my chicken last week. That's about it." The men looked at each other. "If you see anything not normal," one of them said, handing him a card, "call this number." They left. Jack shut the door, locked it, and pulled the curtains closed. He went to the basement and opened the hidden door. Aurela looked up at him. Luma was asleep in her arms. "They came," he said. "They didn't find you, but they'll be back." Aurela placed her hand over his again. A soft light appeared, and Jack saw another memory. Agents taking her people, her home burning. Prison ship. A voice yelling in her mind. Any child born with light must be destroyed. Jack opened his eyes. He couldn't believe it. "They want your baby," he said. "Because she glows?" Aurela nodded slowly. "She. Special," she said. "She. Hope." Jack looked at the sleeping baby. Luma's tiny chest rose and fell gently. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. "I'll protect her," Jack said. "Even from my own people." Outside, the black SUV parked on a hill, hidden by trees. Inside it, the agents watched Jack's house through special lenses. "Confirm visual," one said. "Target location matches the signal." "Send the drones tonight," the other whispered. "We go in quiet, no mistakes." That night, as Jack checked the locks and loaded his old rifle, the wind grew strong again. Trees swayed, and the sky turned gray. Max barked at the window. In the distance, a faint light blinked in the sky. Not a star. Not a plane. It was something else. Jack didn't know it yet, but Earth was no longer alone, and someone was already on the way. Escape to the forest. Night had fallen again. The sky was dark, and the wind moved through the trees like whispers. Jack stood at the window, holding his old rifle tightly. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from fear. He had seen the same black SUV parked again down the road. It didn't move. The men were watching Dot in the basement. Arella held Luma close. The baby slept quietly, unaware of the danger. Max paced near the stairs, growling every now and then. Jack looked at the glowing mark on his palm. It hadn't gone away. In fact, it seemed to glow brighter every night. He walked down to the basement. "We can't stay here," he said quietly. "They're coming." Arella looked at him. She understood. "Where?" she asked. Jack took a deep breath. "There's an old hunting cabin deep in the forest. No roads, no cameras. We can hide there." Arella stood, holding Luma tight. "We go." They packed fast water, canned food, blankets. Jack wrapped Luma in warm clothes and held his rifle on his back. Max barked once, ready to go. Outside, they moved through the back of the farm. Jack knew the land well. Every tree, every path. He stayed low, avoiding open spaces. Behind him, the black SUV was now empty. Far above, a small drone flew silently, its red lights blinking. Jack didn't see it, but he felt something like a cold stare on the back of his neck. They moved for almost an hour through thick forest. Branches scratched Jack's arms. The wind made it hard to hear anything. At last, they reached a small clearing. The hunting cabin stood in the middle, old, wooden, and covered in leaves, but strong. Jack opened the door and led them inside. "We'll be safe here, for now." Inside, Jack lit a small fire. The heat warmed the cabin quickly. Arella sat by the flames, rocking Luma gently. Then Baby opened her eyes and smiled. Jack sat across from them, tired but alert. Max lay at the door, guarding it. "How long can we hide?" he asked quietly. Arella looked at him. "Not long." She touched her forehead and then pointed to the sky. "They." "Close," she whispered. Suddenly, Luma made a soft sound. Her body began to glow brighter than before. Jack leaned forward. "What's happening?" Arella looked worried. She, growing, her power, waking, the room filled with a soft blue light. Jack looked down at his palm. The mark was glowing again. Warmer, stronger. Then they heard it, a low hum in the sky. Jack ran to the door and looked up. A shape flew above the trees, dark, silent, and fast. It wasn't from Earth. They found US, he said. Inside a control room aboard a large alien ship, 2 hunters looked at a screen. They had tracked the baby's energy signal. "There," one said. "She glows again. Lock location." The ship turned, and its engines fired silently. It began to descend toward Earth. Back in the forest, Jack and Arella prepared quickly. Jack dug a deep hole under the cabin's floor, placing Luma inside with blankets and pillows. "She'll be safe here if they come," Jack said. Arella placed a kiss on her baby's head. "Stay strong, little light," she whispered. Then, they covered the hole with a wooden board and a rug. Jack stood near the door with his rifle. Arella stood beside him, weak but ready. "You don't have to fight," Jack said. Arella looked at him with strong eyes. "I fight for her." Outside, the night grew darker. Then a loud crash. Something landed in the trees. Max barked wildly. "They're here," Jack said. The hunters had arrived. The hunters from the sky, asterisk. The forest shook. A loud humming sound filled the air. Trees swayed, and birds flew into the sky. Something had landed nearby, something large. Inside the old cabin, Jack gripped his rifle tightly. Arella stood beside him, her body tense. Max barked once and then growled low, staring at the window. Jack peeked outside. A strange craft had landed between the trees. Dark gray, sharp edges, glowing red lines. It didn't look like anything from Earth. Two tall figures stepped out of the ship. Both wore black armor, like metal suits. Their helmets were long and narrow. Strange weapons hung on their backs. They moved quickly and silently. Aurelia stepped back. "They are hunters," she whispered. "From my world, they kill for reward." Jack's throat went dry. "Will they hurt the baby?" Aurelia's eyes burned with pain. "Yes, she is light. They fear her." Jack didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing they had. To stop those hunters. "Stay with Luma," he said. "Don't come out no matter what." Aurelia nodded. She gently opened the trapdoor under the floor and climbed down with Luma. Jack covered the entrance again and pulled the rug back into place. Then he turned to Max. "Let's keep them away from the baby," he said. Max barked once, ready. Outside, the hunters moved silently. One of them pulled out a device. A red circle appeared, showing the cabin ahead. "She's inside," the hunter growled. "Signal strong. Baby is glowing." The other nodded. "No mistakes. Take the child. Leave no witness." They stepped forward, but then a shotgun blast echoed through the trees. Jack stood in front of the cabin, his rifle smoking. "That's close enough," he shouted. The hunters paused. One of them tilted his head. Then he stepped forward again. Jack fired again. This time, the bullet hit the hunter's chest, but bounced off the armor. "They're not human," Jack whispered. The hunters raised their weapons. But Max ran forward, barking and jumping at one of them. The hunter tried to strike the dog, but Max dodged fast. Jack used the moment to run and dive behind a tree. The hunters moved quickly, firing bright beams from their weapons. Trees caught fire. Smoke filled the forest. Jack crawled low, hiding behind a log. He aimed carefully and shot at a spot between the hunter's armor plates. This time, the bullet hit flesh. The hunter roared in pain and dropped to one knee. The other turned and fired, but Jack was gone again. Inside the cabin, Aurelia held Luma close. The baby was glowing bright blue now. Her eyes were open, and she was looking up. "She feels him," Aurelia whispered. "She feels Jack." Then something strange happened. Luma raised her hand. A light shot out from her tiny palm, rising through the floor, through the roof, and into the night sky. Outside, the remaining hunter looked up. "What is this?" Jack stared in shock as the beam of light hit the clouds. The sky lit up like daytime. For a few seconds, then the hunter's weapon stopped working. "No," he shouted, hitting it. "EM energy overload." Jack didn't wait. He ran forward and tackled the hunter with all his strength. The two crashed into the mud. Wrestling. The hunter was strong, but Jack was angry. He thought of Luma, of Aurelia, of what these monsters would do to them. With a loud yell, he smashed the hunter's helmet against a rock. The visor cracked. The creature inside growled in pain. Then a sharp, blue light burst from the cabin. The hunter's body froze. Jack backed away. The hunter dropped to the ground, unconscious. Inside the cabin, Aurelia looked down at Luma. The baby's glow was fading. She was breathing fast, her energy low. But she was safe. Jack returned, tired, bleeding, but alive. "They're down," he said. For now, Aurelia stood and placed her hand over his chest. A soft light moved into his body, healing some of his wounds. Jack looked at her. "She saved me." Aurelia smiled weakly. "She chose you." Outside, the forest was quiet again, but far away. Other ships were moving. The baby's light had been seen. More were coming. Asterisk. The final stand. Asterisk. Smoke rose from the forest. The two alien hunters lay still, defeated. Jack stood by the cabin door, sweat on his forehead, blood on his arm. His old rifle hung from his shoulder. He was tired, but not broken. Inside the cabin, Arella rocked Luma gently. The baby was weak now. Her glow was faint, but she was safe. For now, she used her power, Arella said softly. Too soon. Jack nodded. She saved my life. Arella looked at him with tired eyes. You saved hers. Max barked suddenly. Jack turned to the window. A red light blinked in the sky, then another. More ships. Jack whispered. They saw the light. Arella stood slowly. They sent more. Stronger ones. Jack gripped his rifle. We have to leave. Arella shook her head. No time. They come now. Jack looked around the cabin. It was small, old, and made of wood. Not built for war. Not strong. But he wasn't going to run. Not this time. He began to move fast. He placed chairs under windows, pushed shelves against walls, and set up traps at the door. Old hunter tricks, wires, and sharp tools. Max followed him, barking with each new sound. We fight, Jack said. We protect Luma, no matter what. Arella nodded. She touched the mark on Jack's hand. It glowed again, brighter now. Jack felt a heat move through his chest. His pain faded. His eyes became sharper. His fear smaller. What did you do? He asked. I gave. A piece of her light, Arella said. Jack looked down at his glowing hand. I'll make it count. Minutes later, the ground shook. A loud sound echoed through. The woods, trees bent. Birds screamed. A large black ship landed just outside the clearing. It was bigger than the first one. Its doors opened, and 3 tall hunters stepped out. They wore heavy armor and moved like machines. Inside the cabin, Jack took one last deep breath. He looked at Arella and Luma. If I fall, run. Arella didn't answer. Her eyes were full of fire. The first hunter reached the porch. As he stepped forward, click, Jack's trap went off. A spiked log swung from a tree and hit the hunter's side. Sparks flew. The hunter fell, screaming. Jack jumped out of the window, firing his rifle. The second hunter turned and shot back. Blue beams hit trees and stones, burning everything they touched. Jack rolled behind a rock and fired again. He hit the second hunter in the leg. It roared, but kept moving. The third hunter broke down the cabin door. Arella was waiting. She picked up a metal rod, glowing with energy from her ship. It sparked in her hand like lightning. The hunter raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Arella stabbed him in the chest. Blue sparks exploded. The hunter flew back into the wall, smashing it. Arella fell to her knees. Weak, Luma cried softly from the hidden spot under the floor. The second hunter stormed into the cabin, looking for the baby, but Jack was faster. He leapt through the broken door and tackled the hunter to the ground. They rolled, hitting walls and knocking over furniture. The hunter grabbed Jack's throat, but then Jack's hand began to glow. Bright light exploded from his palm, burning through the hunter's armor. The creature screamed and fell. Jack stood, chest rising and falling fast. He looked at his hand. The mark was gone. Arella looked at him. She gave you everything. Jack ran to the floor and opened the trapdoor. Luma lay inside, glowing gently. Her small eyes looked at him with peace. It's over, he said, holding her. But Arella looked outside. No, she said. Not yet. A loud boom echoed from the sky. A massive ship hovered above the trees now, bigger than any before. Red. Lights blinked underneath it. Then a voice spoke, cold, robotic, and loud. Surrender the child or be destroyed. Jack looked at the baby Dot, then at Arella. He stepped outside and looked up. I won't give her to you? The voice replied, then you die with her. The ship's weapons charged, and just before they fired, Luma rose into the air. She floated above Jack, glowing brighter than ever. The light became a shield, covering the cabin, Jack, Aurella, and Max. The ship fired, but the beams bounced off the shield. The sky turned white. The ship groaned. Then it exploded. Pieces fell like stars. Luma floated back down into Jack's arms. The light faded, and everything was silent. The choice asterisk. The sky was quiet again. Smoke rose slowly from the burned trees. The forest smelled of fire and metal. The large alien ship was gone, destroyed by Luma's final burst of light. Jack stood in the middle of the clearing, holding the tiny glowing baby. She was breathing gently, her eyes closed. Her power had saved them, but now she was weak. Aurella walked beside him. Her face was pale, her steps slow. She looked at her daughter and smiled. She did it, she said softly. She saved all. Jack nodded, still trying to understand what had happened. How is she still alive? He asked. She is light, Aurella replied. She is hope. That evening, Jack repaired the cabin as best as he could. He laid Luma down on soft blankets and sat beside her. Aurella stayed quiet. Her body was failing. Her wounds from the crash had never healed fully. Jack noticed her shaking hands. You need help, he said. She looked at him with tired eyes. No time, she whispered. I gave too much. Jack's chest tightened. No, you can't go now. She placed her hand on his shoulder. You take her. She is yours now. Jack was silent. I don't know how to raise a baby from the stars, he said. But you have heart, Aurella whispered. That is enough. Hours later, Aurella lay in the cabin, eyes closed, body still. She had given everything to protect her child. Jack held Luma tightly as tears rolled down his cheeks. Max rested beside them, head on Jack's foot. The forest was quiet again, but inside Jack's heart, something had changed forever. The next day, a new sound filled the air. Another ship, but not like the others. It was smooth, silver, and soft in its design. It glowed white, no weapons, no fear. It landed slowly near the cabin. Jack stood in front, holding Luma. The ship opened. A figure stepped out, tall, with kind eyes. He looked like Aurella, but older, with symbols on his chest. I came in peace, he said gently. I received the light signal from the child. Jack didn't move. She is safe with me, the alien said. We will care for her, teach her, protect her. Jack looked down at Luma. She opened her eyes and reached for his nose, giggling softly. The alien waited. You have done more than we ever hoped. Jack looked at the ship, then at the forest, then at the tiny mark that had once glowed on his hand. She changed me, Jack said. She chose you, the alien replied. The light only chooses those with pure hearts. Jack looked down again. His voice cracked. She's not just your people's hope, he whispered. She's mine too. The alien bowed his head. Then you must choose. Inside the cabin, Jack sat alone with Luma. The baby lay in his arms, eyes watching him quietly. He spoke to her softly. I don't know what the stars hold. I don't know your people, your powers, or your future. He paused. But I do know this, I'm not the same man I was before you came. He kissed her tiny forehead. I don't want to lose you. A small light pulsed in her chest. Soft, warm. Outside, the ship waited. The alien leader stood near the door. Have you decided? Jack walked toward him, holding Luma close. She's not ready to go yet, he said. And maybe neither am I. The alien smiled. Then we will watch from afar. When she's ready, the stars will call her home. Jack nodded. The ship lifted silently into the sky. Luma watched it disappear through the clouds, then nestled her head against Jack's chest. He walked back into the cabin. Max followed quietly behind. Jack looked around at his quiet home in the woods. For the first time in years, it didn't feel empty. 1 year later, the cabin had changed. New walls, new furniture. Luma's toys were everywhere. She could now walk, speak a few words, and still glowed at night when she slept. Jack grew vegetables again. He laughed more. He talked to her like she understood everything. And in a way, she did. One night, as Jack rocked her to sleep, he looked up at the stars. "Maybe you're not just from the stars," he whispered. "Maybe you're my whole universe." Luma smiled. A soft light filled the room, and outside, high in the sky, a glowing ship watched. Silently,